This conference will now be recorded.
Prabhuji, hope you are recording now.
Yeah,
Recording,
started.
Prabhuji.
Okay. Hare Krishna to everybody present today, and today my topic is a very important, very common topic, and it's like, as you all know, it's the importance of 4 regulative principles in Krishna conscious life. Now, this is a very common topic, and it is something which is broached in when every single newcomer comes to the movement. They are all taught this, but then there are many myths related to it. So I would try to clear it up in this presentation of mine. And I would like to thank everybody who has given me this opportunity: Jagan Prabhu, Saitosh Prabhu, Anuradha Mataji, and everybody else, my mentors, my teachers. And I would like to take their blessings before I begin this PPT. And I hope I can do some justice. It's a big topic, but I will try to do my best. So onward. And so today's important question of the day is, why is it so important to follow these regulations to be Krishna conscious? Does it not take away the basic freedom or rights of a person to live his life the way he chooses to? Now, this I would like to specially mention that this topic has been inspired by a question from my fellow classmate, my best friend, when I explained what is Krishna consciousness and what is the basic principles. So this was one of her questions, and I really thought that it was an important question many people ask, and it should be addressed. So to address this question, define freedom. So I have underlined basic freedom over here. Now we first must define the term freedom. It is the power or right to act, speak, or think as one wants. At least this is what the Material World and Oxford dictionaries advertise. But to the next slide, what is true freedom? Now, there is a difference between what is the material conception of freedom and what is the actual truth behind freedom. And many people, so the first mistake we make when we broach this question is that we do not define what is freedom. So here we have to first define what is true freedom. Now, true freedom means relief from restrictions. And as souls, we all hanker for freedom, as it is the transcendental and natural state of being, because we are free souls, we are part and parcels of Krishna, and we are even in spiritual Godhead, we are still the servants of Krishna, but we are free souls. We have our own decisions to make. We have that freedom. That is why most of us end up in this material world, because we chose to have enjoyment different from Krishna, which still makes us a free soul. But what is material freedom talking about? It is just more bondage and restrictions. Binding ourselves to serving Krishna automatically brings us to the position of freedom. The position of true freedom is marked by the position of our heart. And when we are truly serving Krishna, which is our duty, that is what is the meaning of true transcendental spiritual freedom. And so then we talk about why these 4 principles are important. Now we have first broached the subject of what is true freedom and why is it important, what is spiritual freedom, contested to the idea or conception of material freedom. Now, since we have broached that, we have to also talk about the importance of the 4 principles and why we follow it. Krishna conscious or Vedic lifestyle advocates regulation. And these 4 principles are ways of preparing our mind, body, and soul for pure unalloyed devotional service. Only when mind and senses are controlled can we engage in devotional service. Otherwise, the mind runs away, as Arjuna says to Krishna, Chanchalam hi manah Krishna. And it all begins with the disciplining of the mind and the senses, as said in the first verse of the Nectar of Instruction, Bacho Vegam, Manasakroda Vegam, Jihva Vegam, Udarapasta Vegam. Now, that one who is able to control the urges of his senses only is qualified to carry out the service of the Lord, especially in this age of Kali, when the urge of the body and mind controls our decisions. And both the body and mind in this age of Kali are always under the influence of the three modes of material nature and of Maya. So, to prove what we want, that we really want that freedom and happiness and ecstasy and devotional love for Krishna, we have to accept some restrictions. The mind and senses have to be controlled, and we need to be careful to avoid people who disdain the devotional path. Prabhupada especially calls these restrictions the regulative principles of freedom. And it is like, suppose you take the example of, if you are training, if you are a soldier and you're training for the military will not directly take an untrained man and put him in the frontier forces to just fight the way he knows, because no, that does not win wars. And if you want to win, then you have to go through rigorous training. You have to become physically and mentally sound and strong to actually fight back. So if we take this analogy and we compare it to the battle of life, it is a daily battle, a daily struggle between, a daily struggle for control, a daily struggle between the mind, the body, the soul, and daily struggle between the consciousness and Maya. So if we are taking this battle and if we really want to fight it, we cannot go in absolutely like a neophyte. We cannot go untrained. We cannot go undisciplined. So these four principles are what we can say military training, our protection to go against this struggle against Maya and the three modes of material nature. That's what I have gathered as the importance of these four principles. Now, another thing when we talk about these four principles is that restriction. What bothered when I had this conversation with my friend is that she felt bothered by the fact that all of these regulations are feeling like restrictions. They feel like restrictions that I am not able to be the person I want to be. So it is explained over here that every emanation from Krishna is a complete unit, and each of us as spiritual beings lack nothing for our existence. But when the soul ignores the personality of Godhead, restriction begins. Our own minute completeness faces the limitation, and the moment we disassociate ourselves from the Supreme, our full potential for bliss, knowledge, and eternal existence is put on a hold. As I said before, that we are part and parcel of Krishna, but so our mirror, our spiritual mirror, is our Paramatma, which is also part of Krishna. And when we ignore the soul, when we are present in that mentality that we are the body and we want the sense gratification, we are pushing aside Krishna, we are pushing aside the soul. And so immediately that part of us is just restricted. So we feel this restriction that it is, it is impossible for us to do, because this is something that has been followed since ages. That people in the olden times used to follow this without feeling any restriction, because this was just the way of life. But now people feel restricted, and then these four principles are Krishna's instructions to us. So when we ignore them and the Lord, we naturally feel the restriction. And after all, there's only so much material sense gratification can do. Even material sense gratification has a stopping point. And there was another thing which very much struck me when I put in the previous slide, saying that material freedom is only bondage and restrictions. So this was also discussed in our Mayapur trip with Her Grace Shiromani Mataji. And Shiromani Mataji gave us this example of she's I think she has graduated from Manipal. So she was talking to one of the patients in the hospital, and she said that this patient was a person with who had come in with like a chronic lung disease because of smoking and drinking and the normal intoxication. So what she said, when she explained that to when she explained Krishna consciousness and these four regulative principles to the patient said that, this is what true freedom is. Because if you see the material freedom, take an example of freedom as in, free to be whoever they want to be, free to be intoxicated, free to, smoke and consume alcohol, because they'll be walking around and saying, this is who I am and you are not going to stop me. You only live once and I want to do all of this. But this freedom is short-lived. What is the damaging side effects of all of this freedom? Like, suppose you consume alcohol as much as you want to, but at the fag end of your life, you are sitting in a hospital with medical bills pouring in and connected to different machines, beeping machines. Please tell me if that is freedom. That at the very beginning in your youth, you were busy enjoying, but at the fag end of life, you have just enjoyed to come and sit in this hospital room filled with bills and machines. Because that is not freedom. That is short-lived freedom. That is an illusion of freedom. And that is also a reason why we feel restricted. Because is true freedom the fact that, at the end of life you just want to suffer, that you want to go through so much pain just for those few years of freedom, when actually you regulate your body, you regulate your mind, you put it in the service of Krishna, and you can take not only this life's worth of freedom, but the next life and next life, and slowly you can go back to what you were with Krishna, a truly free soul, without restrictions, without bondage, without these material disturbances like old age and disease. You go back to what you were before. So then now we talk about the four principles and how this relates. Like why till now we have talked about the importance and why we feel restricted, what is true freedom. Now we talk about the ways, that is the four principles. Now, the first principle that we are going to broach today is no eating meat. This is a very commonly disputed topic. Well, let's tackle this today. And this is also one thing which we discussed, which I discussed with my friend. And she, being a Catholic, is a very staunch believer in eating meat. So this itself was such an uphill battle to talk about vegetarianism. Don't even talk about veganism. So eating meat. Now, what is the Krishna conscious take on this? In Prabhupada's commentary on Sri Ishopanishad, he states that all living beings are given a quota of resources like food, water, air, etc. Living beings on the lower side of the evolutionary scale, like the animals, they don't collect or eat more than necessary. So according to that, there is no scarcity or economic crisis in the animal kingdom. Now, whatever scarcity you're seeing today is purely the work of human beings, that we all can agree. Global warming, animal extinction, that is all the work of human beings. From the side of animals, they have no problem. But humans, on the other hand, will take away everything. This practice of storing more than necessary is called atyahara. Now, if you see, meat eating is also a type of atyahara, because it is like, you are given this, nature has given you this much amount, as in, the human beings are given the milk and the pulses and all, and not animal products, all plant products to consume. But after that also you are taking in meat, animals, which is not your quota. That is called atyahara. Now, the human body is not designed for meat eating, though humans can eat meat if they want to. Now there was this one very nice conversation that had come in Back to Godhead magazine, which was between Prabhupada and a Mr. Hennis. Now they were talking about a social body without a brain. Now they broached the topic of meat eating in that, and Prabhupada had his own take on this Catholic inscription in the Bible saying, "Thou shalt not kill," and he said that how priests of today are all hypocrites, where they are allowing killing of animals. And Mr. Hennis puts this point forward, saying that, they are thinking that, killing animals, they are saying that the animal kingdom is based on animals who eat other animals. So the argument is that if animals can eat other animals, why can't humans eat animals? So Prabhupada immediately shuts that down and makes this statement saying that that is the quota, that is the behavior of an animal, because that is what an animal knows how to do. A tiger will eat a cow because at the end of the day the food chain has to work out, and a tiger will only restrict itself to meat. It will not go and eat grass, and cow will only restrict itself to plants. It will not go and eat a tiger. So they have a a very distinct food chain. But humans are different. The whole point of being a human is that you have a different consciousness. It is not to become an animal again at the end of the day, because animals eat. That does not mean that you go and jump in and eat. And it is all. Then we have the physical, like the basic aspects to consider when we talk about health, when we talk about economy, and sub and when we talk about health, as I mentioned, the human body is not designed for meat eating, though humans can eat meat if they want to. Now meat contains a lot of uric acid, which leaches the calcium from the system. So people who do eat meat have weaker bones. This is the health conscious side. For those who say that meat eating has health benefits, this is the health conscious side, because it has a lot of uric acid, and people who eat meat, they have weaker bones. Now the body can the body also can deal with uric acid, because it's something that is produced in the body naturally also. So it can deal with minimum amount of 8 grams of uric acid. But in meat eating, when you take one piece of meat itself has 16 grams of uric acid, which itself surpasses it so much that the body if you just keep on shoving meat inside, the body at one point will send the stop signal saying that it cannot handle this much. Now meat products also carry a lot of diseases, like if there is a problem with the animal if there's a problem in growth of the animal, that can also be passed on, transmitted to human beings. Then this meat eating also is also a factor for many heart diseases. So you see, this itself shows so many points against meat eating that I personally do not understand why people still continue meat eating. So then we go on to the next pillar, and the next regulative principle is no illicit sex. Sex isn't all it's cracked up to be, and addressing the age-old taboos and beliefs. So, what most people ask when illicit sex is in question is that they say that sex is natural. So, why are you trying to stop it? But illicit sex is not natural. Sex is natural, but mostly sex is used for reproduction. And when you just go around lying around with people, it is not a natural phenomenon. And what what it is stated in the scriptures is that the desire for sex is very much natural, and it actually stems from the spiritual world, where it is found in its pure form called adi rasa. But in the material world, it is just a perverted reflection, a horribly messed up reflection of the adi rasa of the spiritual world. And sex is mostly fueled by the desire for lust, and lust is like like Bhagavad Gita says, it is one of the gateways to hell. So the underlying philosophy of sex is that lust is the desire or energy to enjoy the material senses, sense gratification. And when there is such desire to enjoy, the living being remains entangled in the material world. Now the greatest object of lust is sexual enjoyment. Now, thus, the sex desire is known as the binding principle of the body. Now, which means that sex binds you most to the material body, when we are all trying to, put in this consciousness that you are not the body, you are the soul. But illicit sex works in the opposite principle, where it binds you very much thoroughly to the body. And this also sexual desire is also another distraction. And when a person has that distraction in the mind, it becomes very, very, very hard to focus on the spiritual journey. So this must be removed. So, if you want to go through this, go on to the spiritual path, if you want to serve Krishna, your own urges must be satisfied. Now, another question people ask is that if sex is detrimental to spiritual life, then why do people get married? Because uh, Prabhupada also, when he was in the Bowery, he had many disciples who were having live-in relationships with other women, and they just were busy lying around. But Prabhupada said that don't give them up. If you can't give them up, don't give them up, but get married. That was always Prabhupada's tact of approaching such things, that get married. So the common question is that if sex is detrimental to spiritual life, then why did Prabhupada give this thing about getting married? So, so what is said is that for everybody, celibacy is not an option. For some people, it might not be an option, that lifelong celibacy is not, it doesn't appeal to them, So not everybody can be a brahmachari, not everybody can be a grihastha. So, and the desire to make family, have children of your own is such an integral part of a human being that if you keep ignoring it, it actually becomes more harmful than important. And as I said, if sex is distracting, ignoring it completely and putting your body through that stress um, is also not going to help you on the spiritual path. So what Prabhupada always said was that, okay, since it is a natural desire, have it in a regulated manner under the wedlock, and do not just, you know, get into it, because as Prabhupada said, that this desire for sex is like an itch. The more you itch it, the more it becomes red and rashes, and it completely covers your body. It doesn't stop. You think that one time I have it and the desire will stop. That is one very big misconception people have when when it is related to such sexual desire. So materialistic society, glorifies sex through many of the actors, actresses, all of today's Hollywood, Bollywood, and the movies too. Many of them glorify sex, and many books also today glorify sex as a sacred thing. Illicit sex mainly, nothing under the wedlock. Nobody's going to talk about that. So, so they materialists project the idea that, sex actually makes you happy. But it is actually the opposite. It becomes an obsession. And like I said, material sense gratification can only go on till a point. After that, it also stops. It stops where, it stops giving you that pleasure, and it starts becoming very addictive. And then you just squander away your life in that obsession. So the whole materialistic system revolves around this, and people make money based on this, and it has just become another industry. So we should understand that, regulating this is a very important part about Krishna consciousness, and keeping these urges under control is very, very, very important, when very, very significant when it comes to leading a Krishna conscious life, leading a happy life like everybody in this world is hankering for. These urges should be kept in control. So then we go on to the next regulative principle. Now, the next regulative principle is no gambling. So, no gambling seems like a harmless game until it isn't. Now, the definition of gambling is to play games of chance to win money or prizes, to bet on the outcome of an event, or to act with the expectation of something, or a risky act or venture. So, what comes under gambling? Poker and betting, dice games like roulette, and sports wagers, and, fixing matches and all of that. So, the facts based on this is that, researchers estimated that in US, citizens spend at least $32 billion a year on gambling. And gambling is basically a industry in many countries. Like, I'm not going to point, but many countries just made a industry out of gambling to, fool people. And more of the times when people tell you that you make quick money with gambling, you should also note this, that the rich become richer, the poor become poorer in this game. That is something that happens very much often in this games. Now how gambling is spiritually damaging. Like I said over here, seems like a harmless game until it isn't. Now many people will think that how is a game, how is taking risky adventures something detrimental to spiritual life. Now we have to think about the mentality of the gambler when he is gambling. Now the mentality of the gambler is that he thinks he can get away with anything as long as he has luck on his side, because luck, beginner's luck, it's a very big it is a very big factor in gambling. Because when you look at it in a matter of a game, a normal game doesn't only rely on luck, it relies on skill, on the way it is played. But when you see gambling, most of the time it doesn't rely on any skills, but it relies on the very big factor of luck, favor, fate. So yeah, and it is just a combination of luck, manipulation, chance, of the material energy. Now, and he thinks that he can win more wealth and enjoy more by giving nothing. That's what they think, because they do not put in any real effort. So they think that they can put in whatever money or amount of money, they don't have to give any effort, and they can enjoy as much as they want. That is not a law of nature, because nature works on balance. You want something, you have to give something. It is a transaction. Nature works on balance and transactions. Even Krishna consciousness, you have to put in your endeavor, and then only will the Lord's mercy come. But gambling's basic principle, the first principle of gambling, is that you give nothing, you get everything, which itself goes against the spiritual principles of God. So, it discounts the natural law of God. So that itself, is that you're ignoring Krishna. There itself, it comes that you're ignoring the natural laws. So now you're not going to get into anything. You are not going to have that mentality to serve for Krishna. And the term chance and luck is that denying that Krishna is the controller of everything. You are literally denying that Krishna is the controller of everything. Ishvara Parama Krishna Satchidananda Vigraha Nadi Radhe Govinda Sarvakarana Karanam. You are denying that Krishna controls everything. You are denying that Krishna is the Supreme Father, that he is the one from which everything emanates. And at the end of the day, Krishna is the one who controls your life by gambling, by chance, by believing in luck, by expecting something for nothing. So that itself is, you are ignoring Krishna. And like we said, ignoring Krishna leads you to stray from the path of Krishna consciousness. And a gambler cannot really, get his mentality, wrap his mind around the fact that Krishna controls everything. Because if you believe that principle, then the whole physics of gambling, it completely crumbles. It makes no sense that you can win something in luck when Krishna is the controller of everything. So if you see that gamblers have a very hard time accepting this laws. So that's why Prabhupada always stated that his disciples should never get into this gambling business, because the moment you put the first card down, you are immediately discounting the fact that Krishna is the supreme controller. Now, there is also a quote by Chanakya Pandit in his Niti Shastra, where he says that a person who runs after something indefinite by abandoning something definite often loses his indefinite, and no doubt along with that, he loses his definite also. So that is one of the very detrimental and debilitating facts, effects of gambling. Now, one more thing that gambling leads to is that it leads to, it stops you from appreciating the value of human life. Now, suppose I give you an example, this is a real incident where employees in a hospital in America, I think, used to used to they used to bet on the fact of how long a patient would survive, critically ill patients would survive, and they would collect money based on that. So based on the fact that people were so desperate to get money, these nurses and people often tampered with the oxygen supply and they often tampered with the oxygen supply of the patients. So to make them so according to their bet, this person should live more, this person should live less. So based on that, they would do such things, and it's a very strong case of medical negligence, which is it is not something funny to play with somebody's life when they need it, and you're sitting and playing it just for some amount of money. That is not something that is very appealing or funny or morally honest. Just discounting Krishna consciousness, it is not something that is morally honest, and you don't do it. So then we go on to the last and final regulative principle for today, which is also a very important principle, important regulative principle, which comes, even Prabhupada has established this very much, and I think that Prabhupada has said a lot on this topic, and this has always been his first foremost most important principle. Prabhupada has broached this topic a lot. No intoxication. Staying high is such an appealing pleasure, but do we truly want the damaging side effects? Another way around this, please. So there is this one definition of intoxicant, a substance that is not required for sustenance and has stimulating or depressing effect on the mind and body. Now here itself, it is said that it is not required for the sustenance of the body. So we see that, intoxicants. Now, what do you mean by intoxicants? You mean drugs like LSD, nicotine, heroin, ecstasy, or alcohol, and, smoking. Those are all, artificial stimulants. Now, artificial stimulants, our body is not used to such high amounts of artificial stimulants, and that itself creates such a detrimental effect on the body that most you shouldn't even think about it, because you, at the end of the day, you are just degrading your body. It is not freedom, it is you are killing yourself. Even though it gives you this small amount of happiness, at the end of the day you're still killing yourself. But I would like to explain this regulative principle by taking Prabhupada's experience in the Bowery when he had gone to America after, shifting from the Upper East Side of Manhattan. He had shifted to the Bowery. Now, the Bowery was just a place full of drug addicts, alcoholists, drunkards who, got high 24/7, and they were all, passed out on the street literally, and Prabhupada had to step over them and walk. So what? So I read this in this autobiography of Sri Mukunda Goswami. In I think the book's name was Miracle on Second Avenue, and he said that initially many of Srila Prabhupada's disciples had been attracted to Prabhupada's loft, Prabhupada's whole program, because of the smell of the incense. They were so used to intoxication and the smell. They used to, people always find new ways to get intoxicants. Some are drinking, some are injecting, some are rubbing, or some are smelling. So they all got very attracted to the smell of the incense. And Prabhupada never actually discounted them for that. He never told that, no, you can't enter. He used what he had with him, since they said that, they thought, what was their mentality? Their mentality, the mentality in those days, in the 60s, was that, to become God conscious, you had to be high. You had to be high on alcohol, on drugs. You had to be in absolute oblivion, in ecstasy. Then only you can feel God consciousness. So many of the youngsters those days used to get into every single drug available in the market just to feel those few, seconds of highness. They described that experience as meeting God. And Prabhupada's quote was that if drugs could help God realization, then drugs would be more powerful than God. But how can we accept that drugs are chemical substances made by human beings, and something that is made by imperfect, defective people? How can it be more powerful than God? So no, drugs cannot induce God consciousness. But what Prabhupada advertised his Krishna consciousness brand as something that can get you into God consciousness without paying money. But because if you see, even the smallest amount of drugs also require money, and most of these people who got high were penniless beggars sitting on the street who didn't even have an ounce of money in their pockets, but they were, they were literally in the point of depression when they couldn't get their drugs. So Prabhupada said that, giving this I am giving this Krishna consciousness, this God consciousness, free. No drug, you don't need to get high, you do not need any sort of alcohol, drugs, or anything for this God consciousness. I am giving it free, and I'm giving it without any side effects. And you don't need to keep buying, you don't need to keep replenishing your store. You just have to blindly follow, give your faith and surrender to Krishna, and he will give you all the God consciousness, because that was the main objective of youngsters in those days. They were searching for the true meaning of God. It was an unrest, a political unrest, and they wanted the real true meaning of God. They were not satisfied with the Catholic version or the version of the church. They were not satisfied with it, so they were into God consciousness. They wanted to see God through drugs. But Prabhupada completely discounted that and said that, you don't need drugs to meet Krishna. You don't need drugs. You don't need any of this nonsense. Just follow me, just follow Krishna, and you will get your God consciousness, your true God consciousness. Now, the main there are at least 3 reasons that are given for taking these drugs, intoxicants. Because if we want to stop something, if we want to stop somebody's habit, we have to understand what is their mentality when they take this. So first is that they are taking shelter. Some people take drugs because they want that few seconds, those few hours of oblivion of highness, that high you feel, that contact high, where nothing matters, you're just moving limbs and body, and you're just completely at peace. And then the second is seeking pleasure. So some people are not satisfied by sexual desire, some people are not pleasured by eating meat, so they take pleasure from intoxication. The third is that it increases the illusion. Because the basic illusion is that you are the master of your body, you are the master of everything that is happening around you. That is the basic illusion Maya offers you. So when you're taking the drugs, most people, in a medical survey, it was found out that most people take these drugs so that they get this sort of personal satisfaction, that I can do anything to my body. I can inject all the drugs I want. I can drink all I want, put all sorts of toxins into my body, because I am the master of this body. So that is one of the illusions that drugs gives. So, but the main setback of drugs and intoxication is that the happiness is very short-lived. With every single thing, if you see, the happiness is very short-lived, and the damaging effects is more than the happiness or bliss. Because if you see, you are just selling away your health for those few hours of happiness, those few hours of oblivion, sense gratification, and at the fag end of your life, you are paying with years and years of your life, and you are paying to sit in a medical institution with machines plugged inside you and medical bills all around you, just so you could finance those few hours of happiness. When actually Prabhupada said that, stay high forever. Prabhupada, once his banner, or there was this inscription in New York Times newspaper where Prabhupada said, stay high forever. So Prabhupada was like in the mid 60s, he told his disciples that, you don't need these chemical stimulants to become happy. You do not need chemical stimulants to remain high. And that Krishna consciousness was the way to permanently elevate the consciousness to the spiritual platform through the natural process. No need to inject yourself with unnatural things. And and Prabhupada always asked this question to people who said that drugs helped in God consciousness. How can something material help one realize God, who is all spiritual? Every single aspect of Krishna is spiritual. He is all fame, all beauty, all strength. How can you try to understand Krishna with something material? And it is impossible. What one experiences from taking drugs is simply kind of an intoxication or hallucination. it is not God realization. It is a very materialistic, very perverted reflection of God consciousness. And most people are looking for the true God, that they were moving away from the church, moving away from the orthodox doctrines and looking for God. But Prabhupada said that, if you truly want to look for God, why are you going to these intoxicants? Why are you going for something materially created? And materialistic things cannot help you realize God, because it is not something that will, it is something materially created by us defected human beings. How could something that has a defect help us realize the supreme personality of Godhead, who has no defects, who is all spiritual, who is all strength, fame, beauty, and who is all opulent? How can you compare that? It is like trying to measure water with a bowl, or an earthen vessel that has holes. The water is going to keep escaping, and you're not going to get an actual measure of the water. You're just going to keep wasting your time, and at one point the pot is also going to completely shatter. Your body is also going to completely shatter, and you're not going to exactly get God. So yeah, this is what the setbacks of these were the setbacks of not following these four regulative principles. So this was a sort of answer to my friend's question, which I've not been able to talk to her since COVID-19 has begun. So, in this COVID-19, I have the topic had come up, and I had time on my hands, so I decided to do some research, went through Back to Godhead books, and some of the books that Jagan Prabhu had given me long time back. I sat and read through, especially the books on vegetarianism and all of that. And I read through this. And, this is such an important aspect of our Krishna conscious life of ISKCON. And many people try to join without following this. And this is what happens, you cannot follow spirituality unless and until you are truly cleansed, you are truly in the right mentality. You cannot serve Krishna fully. You will only be doing half this and half that. Your foot will be half in the material world and half in the spiritual world, which is not something people, desire for, which is you cannot serve Krishna when your own mind is running away. And, and suppose you take this example, when I tell you, I'm going to, suppose I'm playing a game with you. I tell you not to think about a red elephant with white spots. Or if I tell you, do not think about this, do not think about the paper on the wall, do not look there, do not look there, you will immediately look there. Because when you're telling somebody, that is the mentality of human beings, defective mentality very much, that the moment somebody tells you not to do it, immediately it happens. So that's what Prabhupada says, that you should not waste your time not thinking about these. You should not waste your time trying to uh, forcing your mind to not think about sex and intoxication, because that is what something that's a very common mistake. Even when you see in japa, they sometimes people tell you to empty your mind, which is not possible, because chanchala hi mana Krishna, the mind cannot be completely empty. You cannot abstain from any of this by not thinking about them. No, you have to follow these regulative principles. You have to engage your mind in the service of Krishna. You have to keep trying. You have to increase your belief, your faith, and you have to follow this. You have to regulate yourself, discipline yourself. Then only are you going to able to make any advancement in your Krishna conscious life. Because you cannot do anything by being lax, you cannot commit to anything by being liberal about it. No, there has to be a baseline amount of conviction, baseline amount of belief, baseline amount of baseline amount of disciplining, baseline amount of time you spend in that activity. Anything you do, there should be discipline. And that applies to Krishna conscious life also. Just because it is religiousness does not mean that you can get to be lax, that Krishna will immediately pick you up and take you back home, back to Godhead. No, because Like even in Damodar Leela, it says that, your endeavor first, then Krishna's mercy. So this is so if you look at it that way, these four regulative principles are endeavor. Every religion has its own endeavors, has its own messages, and has its own rules to follow, because that is the way something works. That's the way the relationship works. That's the way religion works, because religion is a relationship between you and God. It is not blasphemy. It is not some hobby that doesn't have rules. No, everything has rules. Everything requires disciplining. Everything requires commitment. So we do not see this. So the most important part in this, what I wanted to tell, is that these regulative principles should not be seen as restrictions. They should be seen as your commitment to Krishna. That is where the real thing lies, in your mentality. Because where we all stumble is that we see these principles as restrictions. It would be better if you see it as a commitment to Krishna, as that you are doing this, that, Krishna, you have given me this much, I will do this much at least for you. You take one step towards Krishna, Krishna takes 10 steps towards you. So, Hare Krishna, I would like to stop this, I would like to end my presentation for today. And it's very humble effort. And I am not sure if I've done justice. I have tried, and I'm sorry if I overshot the time. And I would like to end this also by extending all my thanks to Jagan Prabhu, to Saitosh Prabhu, to Anuradha Mataji, who made it all the way from there and is a guest appearance today, and she really boosted my confidence. And not only to them and to all the people who are not present here, to my Balotsav teacher and my Shiksha Guru, Revati Mataji, Ratnagi Revati Mataji, and Bandhu Baldev Prabhu, and everybody who they were the first people who actually talked to me about these four regulative principles. And I've always had this sort of fascination with them, and it only grew when people started questioning me about it. And when I didn't have the answers, I thought that, I should have the answers. So these were my this was the answers to my friend who I couldn't relay this to. And it was a conversation. This was just basically a conversation between both of us, which I like to present. I like to present today. So it was a very humble effort. Please forgive me if I made any mistakes. And references would be back to Godhead, and then would be my classes in Dhrida Bhakti, my Vaishnava etiquette classes in Dhrida Bhakti with Dhanishta Mataji, who taught us all of this, who taught us these four regulative principles. And we had many classes describing and debating on these four regulative principles. That is why I was able to present whatever I presented today, only and only because of these great stalwart devotees who took time to teach my other friends also. So Hare Krishna, thank you. Please forgive me if I've committed any offenses. And yeah, thank you for the opportunity. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam. Before I do my service, my humble service that is entrusted on me, I wanted to ask a question to the speaker, because it's a common practice, right? Question and answers after a class. My humble question is, Kavitha, are you a student in Dhrida Bhakti classes, or are you a teacher in Dhrida Bhakti classes?
A student, Prabhu, student. Many more qualified devotees who teach. I'm a student, Prabhu.
I felt that you are a teacher, so that's how. So do you want me to evaluate as a student or as a teacher of Dhrida Bhakti? Because you look like you are there as a teacher of Dhrida Bhakti classes.
No,
Congratulations.
long way to go.
A very good presentation. So I'll just quickly share, because I have another service. I must also admit that in between your class, I had to do a bit of a multitasking, because suddenly today for our Essence of Bhagavad Gita course, I was asked to be backup to Hari Gopal Prabhu. He's in India, so if his connection fails, I'm supposed to take his class. I was just told about it, but few things I'll tell which we have learned in these things, and then we'll go. So what used to happen every day, what's happening is, in the Essence of Bhagavad Gita, I'm lucky to be a part of the core team. So every day, invariably, we see that there's so much of pressure on the party and the teachers on how do we cover this in such a big forum. Every day is a learning experience. So even during the Srivala Prabhu's classes also, he joins whenever he takes the class, he joins, and he says that he's very nervous. So whenever he says that he's very nervous to take, so Jai Govind Prabhu has taught us one shloka. So I'm giving you as my gift to you, Kavitha, because I also learned this. So during whenever you may be knowing it also. Sorry, I think that you don't know, but you may be knowing. But it's good to memorize this shloka and be a part of our culture. Even I'm going to do that also in my classes. I'll just share the shloka before I go here. कथाचन स्मृते यस्मिन् दुष्कुरं सुखरं भवते भवत् विस्मृते विपरीतं स्यात् श्री चैतन्य नमामि tam. I think vismite vipareetam cha. Yeah. So basically the translation is kathachana smrite yasmin. Things that are very difficult to do become easy to execute if one somehow or other simply remembers Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. But if one does not remember him, even easy things become very difficult. To this Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, I offer my respectful obeisances. So today, Kathachana Smrite Yasmin, unknowingly, you've remembered Srila Prabhupada, and who is very dear to Chaitanya Mahaprabhu and other acharyas. That's why even the difficult topic where you're touched upon for your age to touch upon one of the regulative principles on illicit relationship also, you could very boldly do it because you have the mercy of thing. So you can remember this by heart, the shloka. I will put it as a part of the presentation of my evaluation. We are every day reading this shloka before the start of the session. So it's become it started with serious, now it's become kind of a very jovial movement. Before we start the class, 7:20 people log in, and Jai Govind Prabhu starts off with this. We are every day taking the blessings of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. So we also, I'm also requesting all the devotees here to continue to bless us so that the program of Essence of Bhagavad Gita goes on well today and the rest of the days also. So again, just to quickly say, I'm just an evaluator doing the service interested to me. I'm a very much a human being, a very, very ordinary human being, so I can make mistakes. If you do not agree with my observations, please ignore them. But do with some kind of a self introspection before you ignore. But if any observations you have liked it or agreed, you try to improve in your next thing. And upskilling communication is a continuous process to everybody. As I told you that even Srila Prabhu, if Vasant Prabhu is on the forum, he can vouch for me. He himself says that he is very nervous to take the class. So communication skills are always a learning thing. Everybody learns every day. So even for Essence of Bhagavad Gita class, no matter who takes the class, every day at 9:45 we huddle together and we frankly exchange who did what went right and what went wrong. So we feel we are all like a part of the team. So this kind of an self introspection and learning is very interesting. So we also tell something that Srila Prabhu could have done this way or that way. He kindly accepts us despite his success or his ability to deliver very good, powerful lectures. So what I'm trying to say, from small to big in age or in spiritual advancement, everybody is willing to learn. So in the same mood, we will discuss the areas of improvement. Otherwise, there's nothing. So what I liked is your very foundational topic you have taken. Very good choice of taking up and checking the project as an answer to a friend's question who is outside our community. And that shows the spirit of preaching. Preaching is the essence you really live by today. Preaching application type of courage, I felt that it was this, and you very boldly took on a very sensitive topic called illicit relationship. I really liked it. It's not easy to do for you in a forum where you're talking with adults. Good, continue to be like that. A very good conclusion. You are saying that the one big takeaway that we all learned today is regulative principles are not restrictions, but they're actually helping us to move further. That's a very good conclusion. Very nice way to tell. Considering the recommendation is considering that the presentation is from a child or a youth devotee, it was expected you have some innovative slides, colorful slides, more of innovation thrown in to do the articulation of the thing. It looked like more like I am doing the presentation, like my slides, very simple, plain, bland things. Because sometimes nowadays in the world of digitalization, there is an expectation from people to see some innovative methods of articulation. I'm not sure whether you're seeing the slides that are being used for Essence of Bhagavad Gita course, Amritananda Prabhu has used. So we are getting a lot of feedback on the slides particularly. how he has articulated. I'm not saying that we all have to step up to that level, but every time we can try to see some innovative thing as something that you have learned new in animation or doodling or something that you can try it out on how these shlokas are presented like that. Just a recommendation. It's not a must. Like His Holiness Bhakti Vikas Maharaj said on the internet preaching, message has to come first, presentation has to come second. So message has to come first. There is no doubt Prabhupada has to come first. But the second thing also plays sometimes an important role, not in this forum, but other things. Weaker bones, when you're talking about vegetarian, non-vegetarian, I think it's more better to contemplate on the spiritual aspects of it than weaker bones, because if weaker bones are there, I'll have a counter argument saying that the best of the athletes in the world all eat meat. So that is not there, and not all people who meet fall sick. Even vegetarians also fall sick. India is almost the capital for diabetes and heart diseases, which are predominantly still a majority of them don't eat meat. So eating meat, go with a spiritual disposition more than health, because eating meat will dull our senses to grab the higher principles of love, the spiritual aspects of it. Eating meat will help us to grab and get better to things that we see. Avoiding meat will help us to see things that we cannot normally see. We can only perceive some things and we can see something, right? So
Yes.
we cannot have the same food for both. If you have to get away from not only see things, but you also have to see things which you do not perceive. That is a difficult thing to understand, right? Seeing things can be understood, can be mastered, but things which cannot be seen, which has to be conceptualized, it is difficult. For that, elders have advised not to take meat. It's not only in our religion, in every religion, even Prophet Muhammad, the Jesus Christ, they all were very regulated in their food habits and disciplined life. So that will be more easy to manage in an argument. So spiritual content is more important than the material aspect of it. And gambling in affluent countries, if you see, I had been to US several times. I'd also been to the capital of gambling, that is Las Vegas, city full of the capital of gambling in the world. What I
Yes.
noticed there is that there are a lot of illicit things happen there, but they all happen in a very nice, organized way, supported by the government. You don't find there's a crime. You'll be shocked, because I went my prior ISKCON days, so I had a different take on that at that time. But if I look back, there I noticed one thing, that most of them who come, they in affluent countries, because they get a lot of their savings in those countries. You do not have much to do with giving money to your sons, grandsons, and all. You just spend off, and they get good pension also, good health coverage pension. So they come to time pass, and they don't want to earn money there. Even if they come to waste money is also just like when we go to movie, we spend 100-200 dirhams, right? For them also to come and play and lose $200-300 is okay, with some kind of a drink at hand and meeting the old friends or things like that. They do it. So we are not talking about gambling. Not all people gamble only to make money. Some people gamble just to make time pass. So again, better to get a spiritual context there. So okay, if you're not playing for money, you're playing to spend time, but that time can be, is there a better way to spend time than in the gambling den? Can it be used for the time you spend is okay, good, you spend, but did it give you a higher sense of realization on what is is it teaching you a higher purpose of life? But if you take a Bible, you take a Quran, you take Bhagavad Gita for 2 hours, it may teach you something of higher purpose. So better to cover the content in that angle. It will be easier for you to talk to you and your friend. Then you are not contradicting anything that she does. She's also eating meat. We are not saying don't eat meat, but we are only saying that if you eat meat, maybe what you cannot see, if you want to perceive, that is a bit of an issue. So then they will get triggered. So this is just a recommendation. This is how the topic can be covered. And drug liver, you could have probably taken a drug-related statistics, would have been stronger to make it argument. And there's a degrees of intoxication that could be in your future presentation. You can moderate. So you can say that hardcore drugs like cocaine are a crime, right? to take that duck is a crime, and the government machinery is there. It's a multi-billion, trillion-dollar industry. Every government is working very hard to cut that. You covered it very well. But Prabhupada is not only talking about that, he's also talking about intoxication, even to the extent of tea, coffee, which is a very normal thing in many countries, right? So the higher principle is not drugs. Higher principle is the idea of sense addictiveness. So there are some materials that are available to us in our natural course, which make us addictive. So the higher principle is that anything that makes us addictive means that you become under its control, right? Whether it's good for my health or not, that's a different issue. So if anything is driving your mind, then you driving your mind, then your spiritual journey or your spiritual conquest will slow down. There's a hurdle to your spiritual conquest, because in the spiritual journey, in the material journey, you can hear to your mind to some extent intellect, but in a spiritual journey, if you want to you want to see and experience what we normally cannot see, you have to use your intelligence. If you have to use intelligence, you have to keep your mind under control. If you have to keep mind under control, you can't have any addictive habits. If addiction is there, means if I have to take tea, before coming to ISKCON, I used to take at least 12 to 13 times tea. I used to pester my wife so much. So it's a kind of an addiction that I used to have, right? And that whole process, I wanting to have tea, asking my wife to make me tea so many times, is every time that I do that, I'm under the control of my mind. I'm not utilizing my time to use my intellect to see a better things. So all these 4 habits help us to move towards higher goal, to see what we cannot see, but to experience it. So in that way, if you mold it, the whole thing becomes softened. Having said that, once again, a big thanks to you for a fantastic effort. I'll also share you one important thing, is that whenever we talk this thing, 117, okay, let me show you that thing. I'll quickly show this. Of course, you don't have to show it to your friend, but this slide is there. You're able to see?
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay.
Yes, Prabhu.
Okay, this slide is good. Okay, and there you have actually one shloka number comes. 1 second, sorry about it. Oh, sorry. 1 second. Okay, 117.49, I think. Let me go to Google and show you that. Yeah. So Kavitha, you can read. Okay, no, not this. Sorry. Yeah, 117.24. You're able to see. Everyone, I think, are able to see, right? So yes, this is the shloka which Srila Prabhupada has used to put the regulative principles. So regulative principles are just not the whims and fancies of Srila Prabhupada, but they actually came from a scriptural injunction. 117.24. So tapas saucham daya satyam iti padaha krite kritaha. So adharma and all is talking about, and you can read the purport of Srila Prabhupada now. After you have done the presentation, now you'll get a very interesting perspective on how Prabhupada has dealt with this. Yeah. So this is the Pramanik shloka that we normally, because as you are aware that in our ISKCON, when we preach, of course, again, I'm not asking you to use this in your with your friend, but 117.24 is one thing that you can remember. You can meditate, you can introspect, and then that will make your thing very rich. You may not quote this as a shloka, but as a concept, you can see how Prabhupada has introduced this, what was the basis of it. So it's an interesting thing. Once again, a big thanks to you for a wonderful session. And we actually wanted to have an overview of 11th chapter, but we don't have time because I have to rush to the other program. So again, once again, thanks for all the participants who are coming in the Sevadari presentation and putting their best effort. So very valuable lessons learned. And we will also share this in the YouTube, so devotees can further see this very nice, lovely topic. And all the best to you to convince or to share the knowledge with your friend after you modify the presentation a bit, and tell her very nicely, very modestly, and I'm sure Krishna will give you that empowerment to tell what needs to be told, and at least 1 or 2 points of what you told. If she gets into her head, she may not follow it now, but someday down the line, if she remembers that she had a friend like you who told her this, and then that is, you made your day. You have done your job in the service of Srila Prabhupada. Thanks a lot. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. So, Hare Krishna, with the permission of all the devotees, we also thank all the devotees who have come. If we can all quickly switch on our cameras, and then we can say Hare Krishna to each other, and then we can leave. Hare Krishna. I'll give you a few minutes. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare. Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Anyone else who wants to come on board with the thing? I think Sadhu Seven Prabhu, you're in Delhi or in Bangalore? I think it's cold there. I can guess from your dresses it's cold.
Yeah, Prabhu, it is almost 10 degrees or below that.
Yeah. Take care, and please pray for our welfare and benefit. We also pray for you. Take care and all the best. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Ram, Ram, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam. Take care. I will leave the meeting because I have to go for other service. Hare Krishna, Dandat Pranam. Prabhu, I think Jagat Bandhu Prabhu is there. Prabhu, I hope Jagat Bandhu Prabhu, I think he's in a different place. He's not in home.
No, he's sitting in the hall. I'm sitting on my bed.
Okay. Prabhu, Kavitha has done a very wonderful job. You can be proud of her, and keep blessing. Wonderful devotees. Today, Anuradha Mataji was there in our house. She came as a surprise guest to us. When she was about to leave, I told Kavitha is coming on board. She ran from the gate and she wanted to give her blessings and good wishes. So I said I put it as a surprise to Kavitha. Hare Krishna. Dandat Pranam.
Hare Krishna.
Take care. Bye. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna.
Bye.
We'll,
Bye.
Bye. Hare Krishna.